Okay, so it's December 26th, 2023, and we're starting at Chapter 7. The page in the book is page 75. And, okay, so Chapter 7, Minutes, Masters of the Moment. We covered the trust indenture in Chapter 4. Even the outline designed to support your family for generations should cause you to ponder deeply about what is appropriate. The grantor may start with a generic template. It contains only basic points and ideas. The more the grantor contributes to its making, the more original it becomes. From broad strokes to details. The final document holds broad strokes to provide guidance and concepts to carry the family forward. Working out the everyday problems, the small details as events arise, is a different matter. This is where minutes contribute to the overall smooth-running trust, saved by details. The Board of Trustees must faithfully keep minutes of its meetings, not just because they form solid evidence of the trust's legality, but for routine reasons. The minimum frequency of trust meetings where there is not much activity is once a year. If you have scrupulously kept these records, details you would never have expected to be important could save you during a debate with a trustee, or to provide proof to a beneficiary. The minutes supply a part of your legacy to the beneficiaries. They are a priceless family history and an educational tool for future generations, who will continue the family tradition of adding assets to the corpus for the benefit of succeeding generations. Therefore, you should regard the minutes as an asset. The information asset, if you will, or the wealth of knowledge ingredient of your estate. We have found them to be valuable when training a new trustee or other trust officers. This person's first day on the job is spent reading all the minutes. This provides a history that contributes to the new trustee's participation and contribution to the trust group. Consider the Hungarian family in the superb 1999 film Sunshine as an object lesson. The patriarchy's secret formula for the tonic drink made the family a fortune. Not secured in a safe place, it became lost. It did not survive the devastation of 2 world wars. This valuable recipe could have helped the family bounce back to confidence and comfort. Matters of this nature become a family affair. More than one person needs to hold the confidential key. Although the recipe is not in the minutes, references to it would lead family members to its location. Not only do records of meetings provide a history of the trust to far future descendants, you will not believe how often you yourself will refer to them next year or next week. Agenda. When any board of trustees meets, make an agenda of subjects for discussion. To allow time for preparation, give it to them at least 3 days before the meeting. Date and place. Minutes must have a date and a time to give them full validation. Also, attach the agenda of the meeting to the signed copy of the minutes. Include the name of the place or places if the meeting is by telephone. Present. Use the full name of attendees. People need to be either physically present or on telephone conference. If they attend by telephone, note it by placing by telephone after their name. If a person attends who is not a regular member of the Board of Trustees, list that person as an attendee. Then identify said person's expertise or state why he or she is present in the body of the minutes. Issues discussed. Note all subjects presented and their resolutions. Unlike corporate procedure, the trust is not so formal. It may roll out casually and somewhere in the dialogue. A trust member takes responsibility to act. Although the discussion is general, the decision must be specific, detailed, and clear. When creating the minutes, pull these decisions out and make each of them into a standalone resolution. Refer to the sample minute in the appendix. Appendix D. Formula 21. Wait, did that say formula or format? Let me see. I'm going to see if I can find it. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, format 21.
I'm not there yet. Appendix D is very lengthy. Up to 19. 20. And
somebody asked about OCR of this text or something. Was that not possible so you could find things faster?
No, I set bookmarks, but Appendix D is very lengthy. So I just have...
I bet it is.
Right. So such a pain in the butt. Okay. So management residential property. Converted from a real situation, this sample minute demonstrates how the expenses are handled for residential property held by the management trust. It shows you how the caretaker interfaces with the management trust and how the expenses for the trust property are redirected. When this minute is in place, the formal management begins. In the beginning of a trust, people involved easily get confused. Seeing these instructions in writing clarifies responsibilities. Minutes of the trustee meeting of Dawson Trust. September 13th, 2004, Canton, Ohio. Subject, residential property expenses. The trustees formed a quorum and the following were present at this Board of Trustees meeting: Joseph, George, Darren, and Karen. Karen Rosencroft reminded the Board of Trustees that once the residential property is placed into the Dawson Trust through filing the deed at the County Recorder's Office, all the expenses of the property are the responsibility of the Management Trust, Allen J. Family Trust, and the billing address needs to be changed to Allen J. Family Trust. The cash flow from passive income covers management expenses. Allen J. Family Trust creates monthly or quarterly reports as needed or requested. Because Sandra J. Allen takes responsibility for the upkeep of the property until it is sold, her caretaker contractor fees are also paid by Allen J. Family Trust. After further discussion, it was resolved that Sandra J. Allen shall change all bills pertaining to the upkeep and maintenance of the residential property to the Management Trust fictitious name, Lawndale Direct, 492 East Elm, number 84, Canton, Ohio. Telephone numbers, emails, fax, blah, blah, blah. Darren Portkin noted that neither the telephone bill nor any cable bills are part of the residential upkeep and are not paid by the Allen J. Family Trust. There being no further business to come before the board, the trustees instructed the executive secretary to enter these proceedings into the trust records, and the meeting was adjourned. And then they closed it out by giving the names of the trustees and the executive secretary. Okay. There may be a decision to revisit a matter later. In this case, include the facts about the subject in the minutes to review in the future. In composing the minutes, avoid judging or taking sides. For example, if the discussion is about buying property and there is an argument about how much to pay for it, simply state the name of the person who had the question or the position and why he or she feels that way. This is not a novel, so avoid descriptions of facial expressions, slamming fists on table, or other uncomfortable events. You can describe shock, surprise, mortification, elation, if it directly relates to the discussion and resolution. The common subject matters discussed at the Board of Trustees meeting fall under the general headings and are bullet point 1, administration. Under administration, there are policies and procedures. Do you want the accounting handled in a particular way? Do you want memos shared? Do you want to create a policy and procedure manual? Then there's education of the board members and beneficiaries. Are there specific lectures or classes they need to attend? Are there educational standards? Are the books to read, certain magazine subscriptions required? Another one is status of the last minutes. Are they signed? Where are they? Is there unfinished business? Then you have medical and health issues. Are there insurance policies? Are insurance policies needed, necessary? What is the status of members needing health care support? And lastly, under administration is the next meeting date. When and where will it be? The next bullet point is legal. So you've got current applicable events about the trust. You got memos and news clippings about estate planning procedures. You've got IRS or SEC and other matters of this nature that affect the finances. Next, you have trust certificate register. Are more TCUs needed? Should there be a split? Is the trust certificate register up to date? Should certificates be issued? Beneficiaries and TCU holders, do those need removals, additions, individual status notes? Next one is financial. So you've got under financial, you got issues with bank accounts, status of merchant accounts, review of financials. And under review of financials, you've got balance sheet, which is how are the current investment doing? What is the status of the current assets and liabilities? Then you've got profit and loss. Under that, you've got expense review, financial needs, cash flow, which is budget planning, projections for larger or lesser cash flow. Then you have potential investments. Then we go back under financial, which is asset holding trusts, which is administration of individual trusts, buying and selling of assets, distribution per asset holding trust. Last one under financial is other matters. A more detailed agenda is in the appendix. Yay! We're going back to Appendix D, format 18. Okay. Okay, so you got sample format 18 Board of Trustees meeting minutes. Converted from those taken at a Board of Trustees meeting, these minutes demonstrate the wide variety of subjects and details discussed, although some of the events are changed to both be in alignment with the Allen J. Family Trust and to obscure the original meeting details. We kept the flow of information. We use a couple different styles of how to format resolved. There is no standard method, only that the information in the resolved is standalone and the information is complete. Include full names and all names, for items identified. Some of the items discussed may not be totally clear because they are adapted from a real Board of Trustees meeting. We keep this information as close to the original discussion as possible to demonstrate the details found in meetings. In this light, you will find data within this discussion found nowhere else in this book. There are some philosophies, thank you, that minutes should be brief, short, and to the point. Some go so far as to only include resolutions and nothing else. From experience, we found we need the background, and especially the date on which certain matters came to the attention of the Board of Trustees. The following is an example of extensive detail of a meeting that occurred. The Board of Trustees of your trust needs to determine how much information to include in the minutes. The agenda not shown outlined the subjects discussed, and in this order. Okay, you got the time, the date, the location, and the subject matter is trust, capital unit, annual activation, cash flow projection, and private investment banker. The following forming a quorum were present at this Board of Trustees meetings: Darren, Karen, Joseph, George, Terry, Sandra. Administration, education, policy and procedures, coin collection, inventory. Ms. Rosencroft stated that finding a coin collector to give an honest appraisal may be difficult. She recommended getting several appraisals. Mrs. Allen, experienced in putting together a coin collection inventory, said the value changes every year. Mr. Portikin suggested making an inventory every other year because of price change. Mrs. Allen agreed. Mrs. Allen stated 5 years ago it took her about 10 hours to inventory a coin collection of 3,000 coins. The value was about $65,000. Foreign anonymous bank accounts. Mrs. Rosencroft said it is difficult to find anonymous bank accounts. Mr. Portikin said that a private bank does not need to release information without a court order. Mr. Allen said he heard there are ways to stop agencies from taking bank records. Mr. Portikin said it is true, but complicated and sometimes expensive. Mr. Portikin said Swiss bank accounts cost $50,000, and the larger the deposit, the more it costs. It is also a wasting asset. Hey, I think we read this already, didn't we? It's a wasting asset because there is no interest and the fees drain the principal. Writing a business letter. As noted by the Board of Trustees, there are different letter formats. Ms. Rosencroft said that each letter should address one subject or use a heading for each subject. The board members reviewed various formats and chose those best suited to Allen J. Family Trust. Then you've got Education, Successor, Trustee Training Manual. George Allen noted the training manual was either in Mrs. Allen's or Mr. Rosencroft's mail slot. Because Terry Baker, the account manager, joined the trust group 2 months after it began, she never went through the original training. Being in line to become a successor trustee, it was resolved that Terry Baker will take the successor trustee training manual home to read, and she will complete it by September 30th. It was further resolved that Terry Baker will turn in her trustee training tests by September 30th. Status of recent minutes. George Allen apologized. He has not finished the February 2006 minutes. He thought he completed them until he assembled the agenda for his meeting. He is correcting the February minutes. They should be ready to sign by September 5th, 2006. Next Board of Trustees meeting. After discussion, it was resolved that March 15th, 2007 at 3 p.m. in Canton, Ohio will be the next Board of Trustees meeting. How long does this go? Holy crap. That keeps going. What the heckers?
Wait, I want you to read all of it.
Yeah, do you guys want me to read the rest?
Nah.
Okay. Plus, I think we already read that first section. Yeah, so just remember, go back and read the rest of the stuff in Appendix D. Okay. Okay. Never tell. Do not record derogatory remarks about others. Written words of this nature in the wrong hands can make the trust liable. Never record decisions to backdate documents. For example, decisions to change recorded dates. This information in the wrong hands can undo the entire trust. For if you backdate or change a date, then all dates become suspect. Different trusts and different subjects. At the Board of Trustees meetings, discussions cover all the issues for all trusts and beneficiaries under their care. After review and approval of the minutes, remove those parts belonging to other trusts to separate minutes for each trust. Resolutions. Resolutions issued under the authority of the Board of Trustees sanction the members of the trust group to act for the beneficiaries. Also, resolutions allow the members of the trust group to take action for the trust. They provide justification for activities of the trust members should a decision come into question. Resolutions are one paragraph and contain full names, addresses, serial numbers, descriptions, references to related documents, and names of others involved in the resolution. The suggested format and the one used in this book is: the first resolution states it was resolved. If more than one paragraph, the second paragraph needs to start, it was further resolved. Any paragraphs following the first two start with, it was also resolved. Resolutions are standalone issues. That is, they must tell all there is about the decision, relevant to fixing exactly what action and who is responsible. Information contained in the minutes that lead up to the decisions is not part of the resolution, but important information to include. More than 3. The trust indenture. The minimum is 2 trustees. Okay, hold on. I think I want to stop there and see if anyone has any questions regarding what we've read so far about the minutes. Other than minutes seem to be very, very vital.
Very, very vital. I think it looks like a lot of work to run a trust. I mean, it's
yeah, if you want to make it private and try to keep it out of the hands of the government as much as possible, you really need to do a lot of work to make sure that trust is ironclad.
Field trip to some, like Rockefeller Trust or one of those trusts, and watch how they conduct meetings.
Yeah, I'd like to be a fly on that wall.
All right. Any movies with that trust meeting in it, that'd be interesting.
Oh, that would be interesting.
I don't know.
Hey, Jill, did you have something to say?
Yeah, my thought is that the reason you're setting up those meetings, it's almost like you're setting up your own little country, so to speak. And if it's going to be a perpetual trust that's going to go on for generations, you have to have all of that stuff in there.
Yep. Well,
I think it's the initial is just the big, you're going to have to put that time in, because from the interviews that I watched with Gwen and was it Howard that's going to be on? Mm-hmm. They both said that it takes minimum 6 months to write up those rules in a trust. Minimum.
Yeah, and like they were saying in the beginning with the minutes, like had they kept meticulous minutes, they probably could have found that recipe that was lost somewhere in the fray. Like it was probably placed in some security deposit box or placed in like a family's hands or something like that. And had they just had those minutes to figure out where that recipe went last, they would, you know, they would be swimming in the money.
That's kind of an unusual example, but I'm sure there's maybe valuable details that need to be recorded for posterity, kind of thing, in everybody's trust.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And then what if you have kids or don't have kids yet, but grandkids, or they're not born yet? So what do you do when they're born? You know what I mean? I think you have to put all of that in there.
Oh, yeah. It's almost like you really are planning your entire generation's family. Like you're planning ahead of time. Okay, well, I'm thinking, okay, if my kids have kids, then, let's try to think as far in advance as we can when you create that trust indenture to come up with different scenarios. And then now I can understand why it's so important to bring your kids into this whole process when they're young, but at least able to comprehend certain things, for them to realize how beneficial this trust can be. And like everybody keeps putting their corpus into the trust to make it grow. So you really cannot have a selfish personality when doing these trusts, because it's the benefit for everybody. You're putting your stuff in there for the benefit of everybody.
I wonder what it's like when, say, a family has a dispute or doesn't get along or there's fighting and stuff like that. I can only imagine it's probably wild,
Well, I think that's why it's so important to get everybody involved, like all the kids involved, and give them some incentive to not be doucheheads.
What was that? No, just kidding. The other thing that I watched with the interview that they spoke about that I thought was pretty interesting was some of the beneficiaries are not capable of, taking part in the trust, and they said that's not a bad thing as long as you know that. Maybe they're just creative. So you have to write that trust up to include them a certain way. So they are actually part of it, but maybe they're not contributing, monetarily or part of the business. If you haven't, the money's come in from the business to fund the trust. It was just really interesting because usually the thought process is, well, if they're not going to contribute, then, if you're just going to give them something, they're going to amount to nothing, and they were saying that's not necessarily true. Yeah. Anyway, I found that interesting.
Well, and they were also talking about one of the kids kind of having a gambling problem. So they're not going to give them access to the money to be able to gamble all the trust money to increase the trust money, but they still give them a position that doesn't really necessarily have anything to do with money, but makes them feel involved. And I can't remember what they gave him to do, but they didn't kick him out of the trust. They didn't say, no, you're not getting any money because you're just going to gamble it away. They're like, okay, you'll get a little bit of money. And the more you contribute, the more money you'll get, or the more TCUs you'll get, or just like with the kids getting better grades, you can incorporate them, even though they're at a young age, you can incorporate them into making good decisions for the trust by saying, okay, if you get an A, you get another TCU, or you get 10 TCUs or whatever.
Right. Well, you're making them part of that trust where they have an incentive, but they also feel like they're part of it. They contributed in some way, which I think is huge because we don't think like that. This is like a whole different way to think. within this little organizational thing that we're going to create for ourselves, I guess. I don't know.
Also, doesn't that trust eliminate one generation from selling out under the next generation? So say it's a farm and the trust isn't a farm and the farm is supposed to stay in the family. So it keeps the, say, older generation from selling out for the next generation coming in.
Yep. And they would even say things like the trust has to put money back into the company. Like it you can't go out and start giving money to, or was that a good thing or a bad thing? I can't remember. But they were talking about something about it was a corporation and you couldn't take that money and put it into another industry that was like a competitor.
Yes, you're right, because it would almost kind of start putting your business out of business.
Right, exactly. So you definitely had to make good decisions for the company to keep that company. But that's the beauty of the trust, is because you can have a trust for the company. You can have a trust for the family. You can have a trust for the kids. You can have another business trust. You can have a family trust. You can have a trust, for your ex-wives. You can have a trust for, what was it? What did he do? He made a trust for his ex-wives, his current wife, his kids.
Yeah. Didn't he do the trust for the wives for not alimony, child support? I think that's what he set up. Yeah, it was interesting. That was a really good read.
That was really good. I definitely need to go back and read that one, because I was so impressed by that. I was like, wow, I didn't even think you could do that, which having each of the trusts benefit the others, which was just crazy.
Well, you know what confuses me, and I think this would be a good question to ask Howard. His name's Howard, right?
Yeah.
Which trusts are statutory versus private? Meaning, if you have trusts within trust, you can have a business trust, you can have an asset trust, you can have, there's, like you said, there's just so many. But how do you make those, how do you implement them into your legacy trust, so to speak, where you're not having the government, it's not a statutory trust, because some of them are not, what's the word? Revocable, or are revocable. And I know when they're revocable, that's kind of when, you're dealing with, they can kind of get to it somehow. I don't understand all the intricacies, but that's what you're trying to learn.
The statutory trusts were more like, because they were saying the statutory trust is very easy, because you basically put the people working in the trust, like the trustees and the trust protector and all this kind of stuff, you make like a banker a trustee, but they will just do the bare minimum for you. And if the government comes after, they're going to be like, okay, go ahead, because they're under the statutory laws. And so they're going to be able to give free rein. Whereas if it's more of a private trust and you train your trustees right to be able to endure intimidation by government agencies, they won't be able to crack into it unless they can prove somehow that you're doing something illegal or something's looking hinky. But even judges, like once a trust is set up and it's ironclad, a judge will not overrule it. Where statutory trust, I think it's involving people like lawyers, bankers, all these people that are under statutory laws. Their titles are kind of legal titles, governmental titles, where they are kind of, forced to open the books and to give the government and the IRS and everybody free range.
I understood that if it was revocable, because if it's irrevocable, that's where the privacy lies, and you have all your assets into the corpus, and you're just controlling it somehow. But I thought my understanding was if it was revocable, that's when, because you can always change it.
Right.
And that's where that less protection. I mean, I could be wrong. That's kind of how I understood it.
Well, irrevocable to me just means you can't change it, where revocable means you can. Has nothing to do with the government coming in and like looking at it with a fine-tooth comb. That I think has more to do with statutory versus common law. But even an irrevocable trust can be dissolved. Like if you screw something up in an irrevocable trust, you just dissolve it and do another trust and make that a little bit more ironclad.
Well, not necessarily. Every trust becomes irrevocable if the person that created it dies. It automatically becomes irrevocable. So then you can't change it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I'm thinking if the person's still alive.
Right. Okay. I got
the grantor is still alive, I mean.
There's also a constitutional trust, you guys.
What's that one now? Throw that one in, why don't you?
Yeah, it's more to do with constitutional laws than, what cracks me up is people say, well, I'm going to set up a trust and I'm going to get an EIN number. Well, you're setting yourself up for taxes doing that. You're telling the IRS you're inviting them into your trust. In my opinion, that's just what I think.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. You contracted with them right there.
Exactly. That's where we have to be so careful is, tricky.
Well, also, I mean, you need an EIN to do the banking, though. That's the problem. But you have to make sure that it's just a banking EIN alone. With that, it kind of opens you up to scrutiny, your finances, but it doesn't open it up to anything outside of banking. Like they can't come in for reason.
Dawn, the way I understand it, the way you do the banking is that's why you have a trustee. You would use their social security number, but it does not fall on you at all. They're just opening it up for the trust.
That's right. You're right. Yep. That's right. Okay, I forgot about that. Mm-hmm.
That's why we pay the trustees.
Right. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, more than 3. The trust indenture, the minimum is 2 trustees. If the board of trustees has 3 members, the trust indenture may state that 2/3 can decide. If this applies, if anyone dissents, he or she may choose to abstain from taking responsibility for the actions of the group. He or she writes a letter to the board of trustees about said dissension position. If so stated in the trust indenture, not all trustees need to decide. In this case, record the dissenting statement and reason for abstaining in the minutes. If decisions must be unanimous, then if one trustee does not agree, no action can be taken. What is necessary? Here's a list of some of the standard minutes that might occur in the first 6 months or years of your trust. First bullet point, acceptance of the initial exchange of corpus. Next one, appointment of officers included in the board of trustees. These appointment, no, I think they meant to say these appointments, would be the executive secretary and general manager, as well as the co-trustee and any others who hold significant positions, such as a treasurer. Next one, privacy standards, non-disclosure, or any oath of privacy. Next bullet point, approval to issue TCUs to officers. Next one, beneficiaries and any issues or decisions about them. Next one is successor trustees and managers, including their background. Next one is general manager responsibilities and powers. You got officer training and travel expenses. Then you got investment policy and approval of signatures given to financial institutions. Then you got life insurance, instructions about distribution. Next, you got capital or trust capital units, allocation, and any other details decided, such as splits. Lastly, you got banking resolution and certification of trust given to banks to open checking accounts. Other minutes may be about important transactions needed at key times to evidence ownership and provide such necessary information for the trust to profit from opportunities and counter troubles as they arise. Your well-kept minutes will go far to satisfy the basic requirement of trustee accountability. Without them, your trust may become invalid. Then we see footnote, Work County versus National Bank. All lengthy Board of Trustees meetings need an agenda along with minutes signed by the trustees present. The agenda keeps everyone, quote, on the same page, end quote. If the meeting handles only 3 or 4 subjects, an agenda may not necessarily, depending on the way your trust sets up its procedures. Okay, that sentence didn't make sense. Delayed results. Sometimes a trust runs smoothly, but because of a great amount of activity, the Board of Trustees may lapse in its diligent recording of minutes. Consider this. What if a lawsuit happens and the trustees need to either consult with or hire a lawyer? Where are the records of the trust about the disputed matter? That is right, in the minutes. Properly written minutes can be much to the advantage of the trust. It may be necessary to turn them over to an attorney, as they should be one of the clearest testimonies of events as they occurred. If there are current issues which may need documentation in the future, whether or not a legal matter may occur, use the form of minutes. This applies to general managers' meetings or Board of Trustees meetings to ensure the trust's position and the facts. Put in the correct chronological order the knowledge and timing of incidents and decisions. At the time of the meeting, the minutes accurately reflect the events. Do not edit them to include knowledge that happened after the meeting. Tips and reminders. Put full names of attendees, location, time started. If the meeting was by telephone, state it and include the locations of the people in the meeting. Inside the meetings, always refer to people who were at the meeting as Mr. or Miss, plus the last name. In resolutions, use the full name and title. Include total information in resolutions. This is because the resolution holds the greatest significance. Everything else is relevant background. The judge makes the determination by using the resolution, so record complete standalone information. This includes full names, full titles, company names, numbers, amounts. It is resolutions that control the action taken and orders given, and we have often used them to settle disputes among trustees and other board members. If a person is not at the meeting, he or she cannot offer any information in the meetings. Under that, it says, if a person spoke who was not listed at the meeting, it invalidates the entire minutes because they are obviously incomplete or inaccurate. And then create new meetings if a different event occurred outside a particular meeting. If the trustees are not all present, then it can be a report to the Board of Trustees or General Manager's meeting where a quorum is not needed. Okay, so if a particular event happens outside of it, those are not to be added to the minutes, but they're to be given to the trustee or the general manager so they can bring them up at the next meeting. Okay, so next bullet point is meetings are a testimony about decisions and facts. And when meetings testify against themselves, the facts cannot be proven. And when minutes testify against themselves, the facts cannot be proven. Do not tell falsehoods because you will not remember the intricate details of a lie several months or years later when an event needs clarification. Avoid contradictions. This is a formal document. Always assume it will land in the hands of an opposing attorney. Write accordingly. They will mock you for your ignorance. Next is do not be vague. Try to be clear. Avoid use of words such as something, said, it all, such words as, quote, something, said it all, caved in, isn't doing anything, unquote. Next, use the full name of companies such as International Business Developments, IBD, followed by parentheses around the shortened version. Next, do not use a fictitious name of the trust in the minutes, unless the context is specifically about the activities under the fictitious name. Asset holding trust minutes. Every trust must have a minimum of 1 minute per year. The following list gives routine types of actions for which minutes and resolutions apply. We have noted how to apply these subjects to minutes. Minutes per trust type. Okay, under that is automobiles. Under automobiles is repairs and maintenance. Funds need to be approved to repair and maintain the vehicles, and a description provided of needs beyond routine maintenance. Next is issues with insurance. Is the coverage enough? Is the insurance company giving proper service? Are they being responsive? Next one is accidents. If there have been any accidents, give details and decisions. Next one is buying and selling. Should the car be sold? Next one is beneficiaries approved to drive vehicles. Who is approved to use the car? This may be a list of people. Okay, next one is household goods. Under that is inventory completion. Has the fine china been inventoried? When will it be done, and who is responsible to do the inventory? Next one is sorting inventory. Are trust assets mixed up? Who should sort them out? Next one is purchase of large items. Does the refrigerator need to be replaced? How about the washer and dryer? Next one, discarding smaller items. Who needs to decide what needs to be discarded? Last one, beneficiary allocations. Should certain items in this trust be listed on the pour over will to be passed to specifically named beneficiaries? All right. Next one under that is commercial property. And under that, we have repairs, maintenance, improvements, budgets, and lists of improvements are big subjects for the meeting's minutes. Rent collection. Is there a report of past due rents? Is there a projection of occupancy? Occupancy. Tenant issues. Are there troubles to be discussed? Subleases. Is there a policy about subleases? Next, you have residential property. Under that, you got repairs, maintenance, improvements. What is the condition of the property? What needs to be repaired? Buying and selling. Is the market right for either buying or selling? Then you got mortgages. What is the projected payoff date? Next is collections. Under that, you got appraisals. Has the jewelry been appraised? Accurate inventory. When was the last inventory? Does it need to be done again? Added assets. Have new assets been properly cataloged? Selling assets. What will be the distribution to the beneficiaries if the assets are sold? Next, you got investments. Under that, you got new investments. Is there enough cash flow to make further investments? Should they be long-term or short-term? Then you got status of current investments. Are they making a profit? Long-range cash flow goals. Are these funds used for education, purpose of property? Then you got beneficiary distributions. Are beneficiaries receiving enough or too much? Next is equipment. Under that, you got rental agreements. Are rental agreements up to date? Are new ones needed? Then you got inventory. Has inventory been kept up? Repairs and maintenance. Are repairs or maintenance needed on equipment? New purchases. What are the business opportunities if new equipment is purchased? Okay, now we're on to Chapter 8. So, you think you are free? The right to contract allows us to choose our own path, providing we have enough education to do so. We can write contracts where we agree to be bound by certain limitations, and we can write them where we bind them. And we can write them where we bind others. The odd thing about the right to contract is you can contract away your freedom. Beyond the laws. The current legal and political standards thwart some of the basic principles of contracts. Bullet point. When a politician does not want to be caught, quote unquote, he or she shreds evidence. Next one is recovery of breached contracts under $50,000 as well as investment losses is prohibitive since the cost of litigation far exceeds the gain. Last bullet point, the legal battle over a disputed contract takes considerable effort. The time and expenses are only worthwhile for significant reward and one you are assured to get. Small claims court handles cases under $7,500 in California. Footnote on that says California, an individual cannot ask for more than $7,500 in a claim. Corporations and other entities like government entities cannot ask for more than $5,000. You can file as many claims as you want for up to $2,500 each. But you can only file 2 claims in a calendar year that ask for more than $2,500. Okay, so small claims court handles cases under $75,000 in California without legal representation. Check with your state for limits and rules. Despite this, business cannot continue without clear agreements in the form of writing contracts. All trusts are contracts first, and whether they are statutory or common law is secondary. The right of contract stems from ancient laws. In fact, agreement is what makes life work. For example, if there is no agreement about the Federal Reserve note's value, sometimes referred to as the dollar, then there is no value. This applies to gold and silver. Okay, there's an appendix that we need to go to, but let me just finish this paragraph. Beyond the laws of supply and demand, more fundamental is the agreement that these items have value. Because of the industrial applications of gold and silver, we need them to assure the convenience of our life. Therefore, they have value. Okay, so the appendix for gold and silver, Appendix L, Presentation 13, Gold and Silver Exchange Values include the article by Ed Hayes, The American Eagle Preys Upon the IRS. So hold on, let me bookmark this page so I can come back to it. Okay, what did I just do? What? Dang it. Okay, so Appendix L, Presentation 13. It's Presentation 9, Presentation 10, 12, and 13. Okay. Presentation 13, Gold and Silver Exchange Values. As you will discover in this article, the issue of taxation and gold or silver coins is a sticky one. We include this so trustees can know how to handle collectibles and coins in general.
Did you share screen?
It's just, there's no like actual format or anything. It's just being written like regular. Do you want me to share screen?
Great. That's okay.
Okay. Okay, American Gold Eagle Preys Upon the IRS by Ed Hayes. The Muckraker Report. March 4th, 2008. If a homeowner hires a handyman to do some work around his or her house and pays for the handyman's services with a $50 bill, how much would the handyman claim as income for tax purposes? According to IRS Tax Assistance Representative Bob Nearrim, the handyman would need to claim the $50 as income. But what if the homeowner paid the handyman with a circulated $50 American Gold Eagle? According to Nearrim, who the Muckraker Report reviewed on February 21st, 2008, the handyman would be required to pay the market value rather than face value of the $50 gold coin. The market value of $50 American Gold Eagle coins changes daily, but at last check was approximately $980. When pressed for the tax law or rule that supports IRS claim that taxpayers are required to claim face value on certain legal tender and market value on others, Nearrim referenced Publication 17 as the catch-all for, quote, these types of tax questions, unquote. Indeed, Publication 17 in the section Miscellaneous Deductions does address gold coins, usually in the context of holding them as collectibles and investments. For example, a rare, non-circulating gold coin would be considered a capital asset, similar to gems, jewelry, stamps, antique household furnishings, and stocks and bonds. These types of items are defined by the IRS as investment property, and investment property is considered a capital asset. However, in the scenario of being paid for services rendered, the handyman was not holding the American Gold the American Gold Eagle as an investment. The handyman was holding it as a legal tender in exchange for labor. 2007 American Gold Eagle. The American Gold Eagle is legal tender just like a quarter, dime, nickel, or penny. The 1 ounce Gold Eagle has a face value of $50. The half ounce Gold Eagle has a face value of $25. Minted at West Point, New York, also available is a 1/4 ounce Gold Eagle with a face value of $15 and a 1/10 ounce Gold Eagle with a face value of $5. The U.S. government introduced the American Gold Eagle in 1986. The 1 ounce American Gold Eagle contains exactly 1 ounce of 22 karat gold. Can the IRS have it both ways? Can the IRS claim that taxpayers must pay face value on certain legal tender and market value on others? When questioned about a more specific rule that directly addressed this type of tax question, Nearrim admitted that no rule existed. The Muckraker Report asked Nearrim Neerim what the market value of a $50 bill was in today's market. He could not say. When confronted with the fact that the cost for the materials used to produce a $50 bill amounted to approximately 6 cents, Neerim conceded the point while insisting that for tax purposes, circulating gold coins fall under a different category. The Muckraker report asked, quote, a category in which there is not a specific rule or law that defines the category, question mark. Wait, they asked a category in which there is not a specific rule or law that defines the category. And Neerim answered yes. The IRS is once again on a slippery slope. The U.S. Constitution requires the minting and circulating of coinage as demand requires. It also is required that the coins be assigned a value for the purpose of legal tender. That value, the face value, is the amount stamped on the coin. The back of a quarter is stamped with $quarter. The back of a nickel is stamped with 5 cents. The market value of these coins is irrelevant when used as legal tender. When presented for a purchase or when received as a wage, legal tender laws require that they be accepted at face value. Imagine paying taxes on the market value of cash. It costs the Federal Reserve approximately 6 cents to produce any bill, regardless of face value. If you earned $75,000 in wages last year, paid to you in Federal Reserve debt notes, paper money, the market intrinsic value of the money received is approximately $4,500 if paid in $1 bills. No doubt, the IRS opposes any suggestion that taxpayers paid in fiat paper money should be allowed to only pay tax on the intrinsic value of the currency. Clearly, the IRS expects taxpayers to pay face value on their worthless dollars. The market value of a $100 bill is 6 cents. The market value of a $20 bill is 6 cents. The market value of a $1 bill is 6 cents. After all, paper currency is no longer backed by gold or silver in the United States. It's just paper and ink today with some fancy artwork and anti-counterfeiting measures installed to prevent unauthorized counterfeiting. A great argument can be made that those printing the bills are master counterfeiters themselves. Not so long ago, U.S. paper currency was called a silver certificate. The face of a 1957 $1 bill read, "This certifies that there is on deposit in the Treasury of the United States of America $1 in silver payable to the bearer on demand." 1957 $1 silver certificate. According to Neerim, the IRS can have it both ways. It can require taxpayers to claim face value on a $20 bill rather than its intrinsic value, which is approximately 6 cents, while requiring taxpayers to claim market value on $50 American Gold Eagle, which is nearly $1,000 today. While the IRS might want to believe it can operate on its own orbit, the law appears to be on the people's side on this issue. In 1910, see Lang Sue Van versus U.S. 218 U.S. 302, the legal distinction of coins, the distinction in which the IRS now claims it, has no specific rule clearly dictated. These limitations are due to the fact that public law gives to certain coinage a value which does not attach as a mere consequence of intrinsic value. Their quality as legal tender is an attribute of law aside from their bullion value. They bear, therefore, the impress of sovereign power, which fixes value and authorizes their use in exchange. In Thompson versus Butler, 95 U.S. 694 in 1987, the court wrote, "A coin dollar is worth no more for the purpose of tender and payment of an ordinary debt than a note dollar. The law has not made the note a standard of value any more than coin. It is true that in the market, as an article of merchandise, one is of greater value than the other. But as money, that is to say, as a medium of exchange, the law makes no difference between them." There is a recent case in point as reported by the Las Vegas Review-Journal, known as the Kyrie case. On September 20th, 2007, the Review-Journal reported that a jury hung on 161 charges of income tax evasion and conspiracy faced by 9 defendants. Robert Keir, a local business owner, was paying his employees with circulating gold and silver coins. The defendants in the trial had not paid taxes according to the market value of the gold and silver coins. The defendants relied upon the face value of the coins for tax purposes. Defense attorney Michael Kennedy confirmed what the IRS told the Muckraker report. The Internal Revenue Service had never before provided guidance on how to handle gold and silver coins that circulate, only on non-circulating collectible coins. When the Muckraker report informed IRS Representative Bob Kirim of the recent outcome of the Keir case, Kirim said, quote, "That case does not establish a legal precedent," unquote, and, quote, "the IRS is free to charge others that might attempt the same thing," unquote. Leaving such unfettered discretion in the hands of the IRS is clearly a mistake, given the fact that legal precedent has already been established. A coin dollar is worth no more for the purpose of tender and payment of an ordinary debt than a note dollar. The law has not made the note a standard of value any more than a coin. It is true that in the market, as an article of merchandise, one is of greater value than the other. But as money, that is to say, as a medium of exchange, the law makes no difference between them. The defense rests. The IRS cannot have it both ways. Yet it will continue to try through malicious prosecutions that cost American taxpayers tens of thousands to defend against, even though such cases should be immediately dismissed upon filing for lack of evidence and standing. Okay. We're back to Chapter 8, under where it says contract types and differences.
Discussion on money.
Yeah. See, this is why I love reading their appendix. They have such good stuff back there.
Yeah.
We can put contracts into various catalogs or categories. The following is not a complete list. One is financial. Under that, you can put promissory notes, investments, banking, and loans. Next one could be third parties, which would be private contractors, independent contractors, vendors of all types. Next would be employment, where you would have employment contracts, benefits, and deductible plans. Lastly, you would have lease and rental. Under that, you would have vehicle leases, rental properties, commercial leases. Obligation of contracts. If a person wants to make a deal or agreement, he or she can do so as long as it is within legally accepted contract rules. As mentioned in Volume 1, the United States Constitution secures the right to contract. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin as tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, emphasis added, or grant any title of nobility. And that is under Article 1, Section 10, United States Constitution. Impairment. Impairing the obligation of contracts means the government cannot interfere with the private right to make contracts and cannot change the obligation one party makes to another. This gives each person freedom to decide this gives each person freedom to decide his or her own direction and thus design his or her life. Should the specifications within the contract not be upheld by either person, the one who did not break the contract has the right to sue the other. If the people do not have this right, they are slaves, not having the freedom to control their own destiny. What enslaved the black people in the South were these two rights denied: the right to contract and the right to sue others. The right to sue gives leverage, either as a defense or for redress. The denial of this right creates victims who become helpless and oppressed. The same holds true if people are ignorant of their rights. Without proper training to both defend themselves and demand respect, they become slaves, even though they believe they are free. To become part of a common law trust demands that you take responsibility. This is where many become unqualified. Even if no battles over assets occur, those within the common law trust need to be willing to participate to claim the right to create their own destiny. Key to this right is contracts. To create a contract, you must know the rules. Therefore, contract wording is precise so as to leave no doubt about the meaning. Many contests in court are to settle the original intent and the meaning of contracts. Even one ambiguous phrase, sentence, or paragraph can cause endless debate, especially when millions of dollars turn on the decision. Okay, I just want to stop right there and note something. So, where they say, what does it say? Crap. Where did it say that? The right to sue. Okay, same holds true if people are ignorant of the rights. Without proper training to both defend themselves and demand respect, they become slaves even though they believe they are free. So this is where the Rockefellers took over control of the educational system. So to be playing on fair ground in school, they should have taught us about this. They should have taught us how to defend ourselves in court. But they set up a system. Go ahead, Judy.
They should have taught. We should have been learning a lot of things that we didn't. They filled the schools up with stupid stuff,
Yeah. But my point is that we, this whole thing about, we should take the majority of the liability for the place that we're in now. I don't truly believe that. I believe that they put us on uneven ground for a reason, to keep us slaves. They wanted to keep everybody slaves. It wasn't, for the country, to make the country run better. It was to keep us enslaved under them, to control the knowledge that we have. It's this whole esoteric stuff of hiding information from us to keep us from fighting back. and they want us stupid. They want us ignorant of the law. They want us ignorant of how to, do contracts correctly. And this is my issue, is that, they won't even teach us properly now. Even if I went to school and paid for the education, they still would teach you improperly, because they know the rules to make them winners and us losers. And so,
private schools for their kids. Why do you think they went to private teaching?
Yeah,
they taught them what they wanted, what they should know.
Yes, exactly. So, and you have to, even the schools, they teach you about esoteric knowledge, by making you join fraternities and sororities and, all these like little secret societies where, you can have, you can socially network. And if you're in these secret societies, that you'll get the contract over someone who's not in a secret society. So this whole thing is just set up to enslave us. So it's just so frustrating.
Okay, Dawn, hold on. Why can't we do our own secret societies? We could do the exact same thing that they do for the positive. So, and I'm not discarding what you're saying, but I think what happens is we become victims because we let ourselves think like that. Okay, we are where we're at right now. We're learning to trust. Why can't we start all that and do it for the positive? Maybe they're ahead of the game, but that does not mean that there's a greater creator out there that's, got our backs, so to speak. Anyway, just the thought.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that we can't learn. I'm just saying they have put us at a great disadvantage, and that a lot of us didn't wake up until way late in life. And a lot of us don't have the wherewithal to go through thousands of documents and understand it perfectly, where they have the means, they have the financial means to compartmentalize information. And just like, they pay a gazillion people to work with the IRS and train them accordingly, where we have to know everything about the IRS. We have to know everything about our laws. We have to know everything about this, where they just basically hire people to do that. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying to play the victim. I'm just saying we are being put at a great disadvantage, and they purposely did this. So,
yeah, but don't you think that, and I'm not disagreeing with you on that point, but don't you think they've played with us mentally to make us think that we are at a disadvantage? Or maybe we're not, but that's just the way our thought processes go, because we've been so indoctrinated that, we can't do this. Oh, you know what I mean? Like, I think that...
No, I get what you're saying. I do. I get what you're saying. However, that's just not the facts. The facts are we are at a great disadvantage. It's just... we are. Can we
think about this?
Pull our bootstraps and learn? Heck yeah. You absolutely can. You can't if you're always in this victim's mentality. But I'm just saying, like, you have to see and accept the facts that this is the way the system was set up. And I'm not going to sit there and ignore the fact that they are doing this all on purpose. And so is that going to make me more pissed off to want to learn everything that they're doing? Yeah. But for most people, no, it's going to, a lot of people give up in this. I've been in this only 2 years. And since I opened up my channel, like a lot of people, when they realize how much work it really is, they give up. They just do.
Yeah, but that's anything that's worth fighting for is going to be a lot of work. And I understand what you're saying, but I also think that we're kind of under the radar also. They're not looking at us. We're nothing to them. So I think that's where our advantage is. And I think it's very few people that will succeed in it because they are not willing to put the work in.
Yeah, most are not. Like I'm the type of personality where I usually root for the underdog. And right now I see us as the underdog, and I'm willing, it makes me work that much harder to prove that I am not as weak as they portray me to be. And so that's what pushes me forward, but not everybody has my kind of mentality either. And everybody wants an easy fix, and they want to live their life, but they want freedom too. And that just doesn't happen.
Well, I think you nailed it. Everybody wants it yesterday, but they're not willing to work for it or learn about it. And, your friends tell you this, so you go do it, and you don't even know what you're doing. And then you're in trouble.
Yeah. And I mean, it's pretty much that in every aspect of life. Like even in the church, like people don't want to go and read the Bible themselves. They just want to go once a week and have their pastor tell them what to believe. And it's this very lazy, passive mentality that was ingrained in us in school and has carried over into every single facet of our society. And it's sad because, we all want to like get together and like fight against this evil, but not everybody has the fortitude to do what it takes to fight it. So, which is sad, but you can't save everybody spiritually or physically. Okay. Expected performance. Contracts can be tricky. When a contract does not clearly state both the intent and expected performance of the parties, it has no substance and meaning. It is not a contract and thus is void for lack of clarity. Performing the action in the contract gives it substance and meaning. For example, one may sign the trust indenture but never fund the trust. The act of transferring money into the trust checking account, though, confirms the agreement. Some contracts are not enforceable because they are repugnant to the laws of man. Therefore, a contract to break social laws or a contract to harm another is not a contract, but a violation of the overall intent of society. The regulation of slaughterhouses. Oh, is this where they're going to talk about the slaughterhouse rule? Okay, so the greater good of society is more important than a contract between two people or between a company and a state. When does a legally binding, well-written contract become unenforceable? To answer this question, we turn the clock back to over 100 years ago. Through an act of the Louisiana General Assembly in 1869, the Crescent City Livestock Landing and Slaughter Company got an exclusive contract in 1874 for 25 years to engage in the business of butchering. Slaughterhouse cases. In 1879, the Louisiana legislature changed its state constitution to allow counties to regulate slaughterhouses. This resulted in another company's Butchers Union Slaughterhouse and Livestock Landing Company, represented by Mr. Thomas J. Sims, receiving a second exclusive rights contract for 25 years. He brought a suit in the circuit court to get an injunction against the Crescent City Livestock Landing and Slaughterhouse Case Company, represented by Mr. Foreman. The injunction stopped the Crescent City Company from butchering, even though it had the first contract. The first legal contest brought by the Crescent City Livestock Company went to federal court on the pretext the state of Louisiana impaired the obligation of contracts. It allowed two different companies exclusive rights. The court agreed with the plaintiff and Mr. Foreman and the Crescent City Livestock Company, which held the first contract. They then continued to perform services. Mr. Sims of Butchers Union, which received the second contract, filed an appeal. He objected to the decision based on the legal premise that the Act of 1869 partakes of the nature of an irrepealable contract. The legislator exceeded its authority, and it had no power to tie the hands of the legislature in the future from legislating on that subject without being bound by the terms of the statute when enacted. In other words, he challenged the Act of 1869 based on the premise it did not allow future legislation on the subject. This threw the entire matter into federal jurisdiction. Mr. Sims did not believe the Louisiana legislature had the right to change its tactics and thus grant exclusive contracts. By raising the issue, it opened the door to many other avenues where the justices could make decisions. The question about the contract became a major object of focus, not just whether the contract was impaired, but whether the contract was viable. Here is a summary of the problems and solutions. The court noted the following facts. 1. The plaintiff, Mr. Sims, argued the Act of 1869 set up the basis for a monopoly. The U.S. Circuit Court disagreed because the contract's duration ended in 25 years. The checks against monopolies in the 13th and 14th Amendments did not apply. Next, the constitutional power of the state to enact the statute was upheld by the U.S. Circuit Court. Next, trade, including slaughterhouses, harmful to the general population must be regulated, and private interests must be made subservient to the general interests of the community. Therefore, it is in the right of the Louisiana legislature to create the contract. Next, because the original contract fell within the right of the Louisiana legislature to create, the second contract is not upheld. Lastly, even though this was unfortunate for Butchers Union, the Circuit Court upheld the right of the Louisiana legislature to legislate, and the federal government could not interfere. Interference? In case after case, references in the Slaughterhouse Appeal, the judges clearly settle that no federal, state, or county government can create laws harmful to the health and moral issues of the public. Any contract threatening the welfare of the people can be judged null and void. Congress abridges. Okay, anybody have anything they want to talk about that? We good?
I was just reading about public versus private gain. You know, like they can override private rights for public good. You know.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yep, exactly the same thing. Okay, although the U.S. Constitution gives the people the right to contract, statutory-based contracts can be abridged. In the matter of student loans, we find a recent case where a contract is abridged by Congress. This was in James Lewis versus United States Department of Education. Fletcher, Circuit Judge. Appellate James Lewis seeks a review of a final judgment issued by the United States District Court of the District of Idaho in favor of appellee United States Department of Education Department. The bankruptcy court held and the district court affirmed that a congressional amendment to the law governing the dischargeability of a student loan obligation in bankruptcy may be retroactively applied to an obligation incurred prior to the date the law was changed. Whether the district court correctly ruled that the retroactive amendments govern appellate student loans is the single issue of law before this court on appeal. Appellate's central argument is that he had a right to rely on the statute of limitations in effect at the time he incurred his obligation because A, the statute of limitations was an implicit term of the contract he signed, and B, his contract created a property right to discharge his student loan after the prescribed statutory period. And C, any government action to impair his contractual right violates his Fifth Amendment right to due process. And this footnote says, appellate also attempts to invalidate the relevant congressional amendments under the Sovereign Acts Doctrine. The doctrine holds that when government undertakes a public and general act, it is not liable for incidental breach of contract liability to private parties with whom it contracts. Appellate does not have a contract incidentally breached by a public and general act. Rather, he is one member of the class initially affected, albeit adversely, by a public and general act. We reject his arguments to the contrary and reject his challenge under the Sovereign Acts Doctrine. Okay, so we reject his challenge. Bankruptcy is a legislatively created benefit, not a right that Congress may alter or withhold at its discretion. It did exactly that in 1998 when it amended 11 U.S.C. 523A8A to eliminate retroactively the dischargeability of student loans such as appellates that have been in repayment for 7 years or more. Congress left in place an undue hardship exception to non-dischargeability, which appellate does not claim. Though its power to legislate on bankruptcies, Congress has the power to impair contractual obligations even retroactively, and appellate has no superseding right to a discharge in bankruptcy. Contract basics. To have a valid and thorough private contract, these are basics to include. First, the name of the parties. The address of all parties can be at the beginning or the end of the contract. Next is expected contractor services. Make a detailed list to leave no doubt in the mind of either party. Although it is tempting to assume the duties are understood, it is surprising how many times they are not. Use common sense. Otherwise, the list of duties will be too detailed. Next is client responsibilities. The contractor may need to perform his or her duties, but cannot without your cooperation. List these expectations and requirements. Time for performance. When does the contract start? How long does it last? And how many hours per week or month are needed? Does the contract renew automatically until renegotiated? Payment. Is there an hourly rate, or does the contractor need to bill for services done? Is there an increase after a time period? When is the contract paid? Is it weekly, monthly, and how long after receipt of the invoice? Are there bonuses for early completion? Place of performance. This can be an on-site location, in a person's home, or on the contractor, or in the contractor's home. State and federal taxes. Is the contractor or the client responsible for taxes? Is the private and independent contract, the contractor is responsible. In an employment contract, the employer is usually responsible. Fringe benefits. A private or independent contractor cannot get benefits. Employee benefits in an employment agreement need to be detailed. Status of the contractor. State clearly if this is a private, independent, or employment contract. Other clients. Will the contractor work for others, or are you the exclusive client for a particular time period? If independent or private, the contractor will likely have other clients. Assistance. If the contractor has help, who pays that help? Equipment and supplies. If independent or private, the contractor provides some or all the equipment and supplies, while the employment contract can be either way. Dispute resolution. This is a significant issue because of litigation costs. If possible, resolve matters through mediation or arbitration. Okay, there's an Appendix G to that one. Oh, wait, no. Wait, 50. Oh, so yeah, Appendix G. Let me bookmark this. Oh, crap. What did I say? Appendix G, what? Format 30?
Format
30?
31.
31?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Private contract for general manager. Sometimes the grantor becomes the general manager, or another family member may be more suitable. Wait a second. Wait, am I on the right one? Is this making sense? Oh, private contract. Yes. Okay, never mind. Always define responsibilities and agree on goals and expectations. A contract is like a fence between good neighbors. It defines boundaries. When dealing with shared resources, assets, and investments, take care to make reasonable contracts. Independent status. This contract is a private agreement. An independent contract is subject to rules of the IRS and the courts, which may or may not be applicable to you. For example, being an independent contractor may be more fitting for people in the trade industries. The private status of this contract comes under Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution. People who have received this contract often borrow parts of it to make it their own. As you read through it, you will see its uniqueness. Okay. We got 1. Names. This agreement is between Allen J. Family Trust, doing business as Lauderdale Direct, the client, and Joseph Allen, contractor. 2. Privacy. A. The contractor is required to sign an oath of privacy for the client. B. Neither client nor contractor will reveal any records about contractor or client, unless on written authorization of the other party or a court order, as compliance for contractors' rights protected by the Ohio Constitution. And it says, give article and section numbers along with the date and the Constitution for your state. C, the right of privacy is also secured and preserved through Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution of the United States, 1787, respectively, where properly applicable, according to conflicts of laws and principles governed by the 9th and 10th Articles, as well as the Constitution of the United States. 3. Services performed by contractor. A. Research all possible avenues to increase the cash flow for the benefit of the beneficiaries and advise the Board of Trustees about investment opportunities gained from it. B. Hire, supervise, and terminate contractors or employees of the client. C. Manage the needs of clients' business and assets. This includes, but not limited to, financial duties, caretaking, contracts for both physical and creative needs. D. Attend all meetings of the Board of Trustees to present reports and to act as an advisor to the Board of Trustees. E. Manage the daily affairs of the trust. This includes, and is not limited to, 1. Review and track financial accounts, ensuring a cash flow. 2. Ensuring a cash flow. 3. Correspondence and handling advertising if suitable. This includes, but is not limited to, artwork, letter writing, producing flyers, placing advertising or legal notices in various mediums such as newspapers, television, and magazines. Prepare periodic written note reports to have general manager meetings as needed, but not less than twice a year. 4. Time for performance. A. Contractor begins work on August 31st, 2004. B. The duration of this contract is for 1 year from the date as shown in Section 3A. C. Contractor will devote an average of 3 hours per week. This may be extended, but not more than 8 hours per week without written agreement. D. The private contract automatically renews monthly until renegotiated. 5. Payment. A. Client pays contractor $300 per month. B. After 1 year, contractor may renegotiate this contract. C. Client pays contractor according to the following schedule. 1. Payment on submission of detailed invoice listing work completed, for example, meetings, investment research, or property maintenance. 2. Payment within 7 days of receipt of invoice. 6. Place of performance. A. Initially, contractor performs the duties as outlined at the place of the contractor. B. The contractor may from time to time perform duties at the place of the client. 7. State and federal taxes. A. Client will not, 1. Withhold Social Security and Medicare taxes from contractor's payments or make such tax payment on contractor's behalf. 2. Make state or federal unemployment contributions on contractor's behalf or withhold state or federal income tax from contractor's payments. B. Contractor is responsible to pay applicable taxes related to performing services under this contract. This includes income, Social Security, Medicare, and self-employment taxes. C. Contractor is responsible to pay all unemployment contributions related to performing services under this contract. Contractor will refund client if client pays such taxes or unemployment contributions. D. The contractor is not an employee and client is not an employer. Further, contractor does not elect to fill out a W-4. Should this come into dispute, the following regulations are recited for clarifications. 1. IRC Section 3402A1. No federal, state, city, or county, municipal, corporation will levy or collect or cause to be levied or collected any tax on the income or any part of it of any person, resident or non-resident, also known as, quote, the full paycheck law, unquote. Employers are prohibited from taking amounts from pay for federal and state taxes, fees, or other charges absent the lawful, knowing, written consent of the employee. 26 CFR 31.3402P-1A. Quote, an employee who wants to enter an agreement for withholding shall provide his employer with Form W-4 or its equivalent for withholding. Providing such Form W-4 will set up a request for withholding. 3. the 31 CFR 215.2 N1, employers cannot take amounts from the workers' pay for any form of state tax unless the employee voluntarily elects to have such sums withheld. 4. Pursuant to 26 CFR 31.3402P-1B2, either the employer or the employee may terminate the withholding agreement, W-4 or its equivalent, by providing a signed written notice to the other. An employer cannot lawfully take amounts from the worker's pay without the risk of being sued after the worker gives his or her written consent to end the withholding agreement, W-4 or its equivalent. That bit is quite interesting. 8. Fringe benefits. Neither contractor nor contractors, employees, are eligible to take part in any employee pension, health, vacation pay, sick pay, or other fringe benefit plan of client. Private contractor status. A. The parties intend contractor to be a private contractor in performing the services. B. Contractor has the right to control and decide the methods and means of performing the contractual services. Other clients. A. Contractor keeps the right to perform services for other clients. B. Other clients of the contractor cannot be in competition with the client. Here we go. C. Contractor is under an oath of privacy and cannot disclose specific private information about the client nor the client's customers. Assistance. A. Contractor at contractor's expense may employ such assistants as contractor considers suitable to perform the contractual services. B. Contractor will be responsible for paying these assistants as well as any expense attributable to them, including income, Social Security, Medicare, taxes, and unemployment contributions. Contractor will keep workers' compensation insurance for all of its employees. Employment and supplies. While contractor works at client's property, client provides computer software, printer, and related office supplies. B. Should contractor work from his home, contractor provides computer software, printer, and related office supplies. C. Client refunds contractor for all out-of-pocket expenses related to work performed, including the current mileage rate for errands and duties performed during responsibilities outlined here. 8. Dispute resolution. A. Mediation. 1. Client and contractor agree to mediate any dispute or claim arising between them out of this agreement or any resulting transaction before resorting to arbitration or court action. 2. Mediation fees, if any, will be divided equally among the parties involved. 3. Selection of the mediator occurs by mutual contest of the parties with the following format. A. Once a party delivers a written demand for a mediation under this agreement, each party gives to the other a list of 3 proposed mediators and their respective biographical data. B. Each person has the right to strike 2 names off the other party's list. C. If the 2 parties do not consist to mediating the dispute using any one of the named proposed mediators who has not been struck, then the submission starts anew. It continues until the parties mutually consent to use a particular mediator. B. Recovery of attorney's fees does not apply, even if attorney's fees would otherwise be available to that party in any such action. 1. If any party begins an action without first trying to resolve a dispute or claim to which this paragraph applies through mediation, or 2. If any party refuses to mediate after a request for mediation has been made. C. The mediation provision applies whether or not the arbitration provision below is initialed. Initialing the arbitration provision, however, is encouraged in part because arbitration is considered by both federal and state codes and practice as a more efficient method for resolving disputes than its litigation. D. Filing a court action to enable recording A notice of pending action for order of attachment, receivership, injunction, or other provisional remedies will not form a waiver or avoidance of the mediation provision. And it just keeps going. Okay. We'll have to come back to that one. Let me see how many more pages until this is done. Okay.
I think those things are there for future reference if you need them.
Yeah. But I think we read the most interesting section of it. And that was the taxes.
Did you get the sense that it sounded like taxes are voluntary?
Yes.
You were reading that, it's like,
I was like, wait a second. Employers are not supposed to be deducting taxes unless they get specific written agreement that the employee wants that done. And they've just been doing it.
Yeah, we sign our own agreement to pay taxes.
Yeah, that's a little cray-cray. Okay, so, all right, standard closing. Include these common paragraphs found in most contracts. Let me get that off. Entire agreement. A statement that this is the entire agreement and that it supersedes or replaces all other agreements. Successors and assignees. The agreement cannot be assigned without approval of both parties and conditions when it is assigned. Notices and modifications. All modifications must be in writing and instructions of how they are delivered to the other party. Governing law. The agreement is made in accordance with the laws of the state in which the contract takes place. Counterparts. Any fully signed copy is the same as the original. Waiver. Waivers of parts of that agreement have time limits. Severability. Any part unenforceable does not make the remaining contract unenforceable. Then you got date it is signed and signatures. To contract or not to contract, to contract or not. The average person does not often get involved with contracts. It seems an overwhelming task. Professionals are more likely to either create a contract, employ a paralegal, or hire a lawyer to help them. Contracts are not difficult to write. Most professionals use previously written contracts to follow when they create a new one. If you are able to write a business letter, writing a contract is within your grasp. The spiritual side of contracts. Writing your own contract brings up many issues not normally addressed. It is almost a spiritual experience, a self-review as you consider how to word paragraphs to get what you need. Here you come face to face with your self-worth and values. Just how much should you charge for services or pay for them? Use the same in reverse. If someone gives you a contract to read, you might want to rewrite it, even to just simply dissect it. Reordering the paragraphs might give you insight into the deeper meaning of the words, or using an outline can clarify many garbled ideas. That a legal professional writes a contract does not automatically make it right or worthy of your consideration. If you do not understand strange sentence structure, reword it so it works for you. Prepare yourself for several revelations and many questions. Even if you plan to review it with a lawyer, this exercise puts you on equal footing in the discussion. In fact, this is one of those moments where taking a new trustee or a beneficiary with you to discuss a contract with a legal professional helps give that person valuable trust experience. Commitment and reality. Not, in our experience, people who avoid contracts are not people with whom you should conduct business. Some may come with fantastic ideas and want to give you the opportunity of a lifetime through offering you a special deal. Tell them to put it in writing or quote, here's a contract, sign it and we'll do business, unquote. Many people fold when faced with committing to an obligation. Others have saved themselves headaches and heartaches by using a contract to chase away those who cannot deal in the real world and have no plan of getting involved in the substance of transaction. Marriage. Speaking of contracts, marriage is a business contract. Okay, we're not reading that appendix. Wait. Hold on. All right. We're going to get through this. I'm just going to get through chapter 8, but can someone make note of the appendixes that we're not going to read in this reading, and then we'll come back to it in next readings.
We do marriage already. Didn't we do marriage before? I mean,
did we?
We talked about marriage a lot. So do they repeat the appendixes in here?
Well, there's because there's like presentation 1, presentation 2, so we could have read another presentation. I don't know.
Because it was a lengthy one on marriage a couple times ago.
Okay. I'll make note of that. Okay. So up here, back to marriage. When falling in love, many over-respond to the massive dopamine rushing through their brain. Then they get hitched before the business part of the marriage is settled. Getting married gooey-eyed is not recommended, although nature would have you dash in where angels fear to tread. As hard as it may be, sit down with the prospective partner to sort out your joint finances. A review of property and who commits to bring home the cash before you tie the knot is essential. Otherwise, getting more of what you do not need may occur. An understanding of contracts gives you an idea of how many questions need answers before your blind faith leads you down the dark alley. Marriage is about money. You can have your love affair indefinitely, but entering a binding contract with your lover changes much about what could have been a wonderful romp through life. Now you are into your spouse's problems, irresponsibilities, old habits, and downright ugly past. You both have baggage. It comes along into the marriage. This includes the unresolved issues with family members and debts, whether financial or not, yet owed. And speaking of obligations of contracts, those old ones with family members are deep. Financial contracts. These can be tricky with much number crunching, interest rates, and points when negotiating your mortgage and all the strange lingo that comes with stocks and bond transactions can make your head spin. Most of us blindly sign. Not only is the print too small, but the paperwork overwhelms the mind. Despite all this, though, with a few pointers about contracts, you should be able to find those areas of most concern to you. Promissory notes. Even promissory notes, the simplest form of financial contract, can be tricky. Again, the details are important. State the interest rate, any reasons for the loan, because you will forget why you loaned the money, and any other issues relevant to the matter. We recommend including the promissory note from bankruptcy or state payment of the full note happens on bankruptcy. If the borrower does not allow these items, do not loan the money. If you receive funds on a promissory note and the borrower claims bankruptcy, all the money he or she gave you can be claimed by the attorneys for payment of their fees. Take this into consideration when using promissory notes. Banking and loan agreements. Shopping for the best deal from bank to bank can get you the best rates. Here again, though, you need to be sure that your best terms apply if the loan is sold to another bank. Lease and rental agreements. Use rental agreements when rental property is put into trust. If the grantor still lives on the property, he or she generally needs to pay rent. In fact, as mentioned in Volume 1, the best trust situation for residential property is to have a rental agreement in place to ensure the ownership belongs to the trust. Further, if the grantor remains on the property as caretaker, this saves the property from vandals. Some trust companies suggest advertising for caretakers before the grantor is allowed to remain on the property. Use lease agreements when trust vehicles are used by other than the beneficiary listed on the asset holding trust. The trustees sign the vehicle leases of third-party vendor agreements. Miscellaneous agreements. Privacy, caretaker, management, administration, web hosting, secretarial service, and consulting contracts of all types are just a few of those found in the miscellaneous category. The trust's basic contracts serve as a template to use to write other contracts. Management. This contract spells out what the management trust handles. This is the central organization where the Board of Trustees manages. If there are several trustees, they are likely to hold positions on the management trust, as well as one or two other trusts being managed. Trustee combinations provide a sufficient mix between those experienced, adverse, and family members who serve as trustees on other trusts. To give an idea of what functions a board of trustees handles, here is a partial list of responsibilities of any board of trustees. 1. The management organization is responsible to handle the following areas of asset administration. A. Fiduciary fees. B. Payroll administration. C. Legal issues. Under C, there is I. Correspondence. I2, or little one. Little 2 is filings with county, state, and federal agencies. Little 3 is consultation with legal experts. 1 is paralegals. 2, trust consultants. 3, lawyers. And little 4 is research. Then you got D, tax matters and dealings with tax authorities. Under that, you got payroll taxes, you got state and local taxes, and you got federal taxes. E, application of pass-through accounting and distribution methods and procedures. F, investment administration for the following trust groups. G, trust administration, including but not limited to. I, Board of Trustees meetings, which location and agenda are under. And the next one is hiring and training of trustees. H, real estate transactions. Under that, you got leases, rentals, mortgages, deeds, titles. I, insurance. Under that, you got life, casualty, medical, comprehensive, and liability. Quasi-contracts. We discussed quasi-contracts in Volume 1. These contracts are not written, but become real through mutual assent. They are not dependent on the agreement of parties, but on the action within the transaction. If you make a verbal contract with the roofer to repair part of the roof and you make a down payment, this is a quasi-contract. The facts of the contract become obvious by the work and the money. If you steal cable TV, you create a quasi-contract by use of the stolen feed. This is why you can be prosecuted. There is unjust enrichment of one of the parties. Welfare benefits. Another contract comes into being when one receives benefits. In this law, this is found under the subject of quantum merit. A right to recover in quantum merit is based on a promise implied by law to pay for beneficial services rendered and knowingly accepted. When getting something for nothing, parts or all of the Bill of Rights may become void. This is particularly true when one accepts welfare. When receiving free benefits, the recipient cannot refuse the government's terms of service either. Nothing is really free. This applies to receiving beneficial distribution from a trust. Once accepted, the beneficiaries are beholden to the terms of the trust indenture under the laws of quasi-contract, and especially quantum merit. Study the art of contracts if you plan to organize and run a common law trust, or if you want to claim your divine right to be free. Okay, so next time we're going to have to go back and read Appendix G, format 34 and format 30, and Appendix J, presentation 5. Okay. Does anybody have anything they want to bring forth to speak about?
With this sentence in there when it started about contracts, that the average person doesn't have much involvement in contracts, and I was going to say, no, that's not true. We're doing contracts all the time. We just don't.
Well, I mean, you aren't writing the contracts, but you're definitely contracting.
Yeah. Well, we found that contracts don't have to be in writing, do they?
Right. Anybody else want to talk about something we read? So I just know that I need to go back and read the Appendix G and the laws that they suggested for taxes. What was it? IRC in 3402A1, 26 CFR, 31 CFR. I think we need to go back and look at that. Did someone unmute? Sorry. Did I talk over you?
Sorry, I do have a comment. If you do that, if you have your full pay for whatever go in your bank account, that will benefit you when you're doing your 1099 ABCs, so you can claim the full amount that's running through your bank account instead of only having part of it because they already took some out.
You mean if you don't get your taxes taken out?
Either way, you'll benefit greater if you are in control of that full paycheck, having it go through your bank account if you're doing the 1099s, if you're doing your Bs.
Right. Nobody else got nothing?
So much to learn. So much.
Well, I'm new here. Hi, everybody. In general, I would say that this book is, I of course want to read it all, but I do categorize it as part of the system and with all of its little reality boxes that we can choose to, operate within or without. So we can think outside of some of these reality boxes. We can function outside of some of these.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is just kind of a outline of the things that you can do, but you can totally get creative with it.
They have everything inside the box. Is what they keep saying is in case you're taken to court, is to protect yourself from a court action by doing things their way.
Yeah, the key is to save your butt as much as possible by, taking the minutes and these contracts. These are just things that if for some reason you were brought into court, that they will be your evidence. So, the government can't come after you or other people can't come after you. And
so I have a question. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Joe.
Okay. I'm a little confused. Maybe I'm just not there yet. But how can they even take you to court if these are private contracts? How would they even know who owns what? Because you're keeping it private. Private is private. It's a private contract. So is it the trustee giving you up? You know what I mean? I'm just probably not understanding it.
No, I mean, I think it was in book 1, they talked about how you got to really train up your trustees to be as strong as steel and make sure that they know their stuff so that when the government does try to interfere, they get stonewalled. And no matter what kind of pressure tactics these government entities use to get into the books, then your trustees are your guards at the gate. And some trustees just crumble at authority or under the pressure of the IRS with all their threatening lingo. But the more you know about the trust, the more you're involved in it, the more that, you understand contracts and how rock solid the contract is, then the government can't interfere. Unless, of course, you go and you make some whack-ass contract with a government facility, or you make a contract with somebody on the outside to benefit the trust, and something wonky happens there and they take you to court, and then they ask, it kind of opens up this can of worms, which can make your trust penetrable, not impenetrable, but penetrable. So, the government always wants to have its little fingers on everything and wants to know what you're doing at all times. And they can't stand it when they're not involved in something, especially something that makes money.
Okay, well, I understand what you're saying, but okay, so I was watching, I don't know if it was Gwen or Howard, they were being interviewed, and they were talking about this book specifically. How were they able to go after them? How did they even know who wrote the book? Because the book was actually put in a trust.
The trust,
so
took them
do you
to
know
court.
What I mean?
Yeah, but the government come after the trust and demand to know, demand to basically, because they're putting the book out in commerce. So
right, but they didn't have the people's name on the book. If you look at the book, I mean, what's the author's name? 10 people wrote the book.
Arthur Miller or something like that.
All right, I'm just curious on how they were able to. I mean, I know ultimately because the book was in the trust, it actually, that was one of the ways that they won that case. But I'm curious how they were able to know who to go after. Do you know what I'm saying? Because if there's 10 of them, and I think 2 of them, they went after 2 of them.
Oh, wait, they went after them individually?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it was Frank and Gwen. Or you think her name is Gwen? Yes, those are the 2 people that they went after. From their conversations, that's how it sounded to me. And Frank's deceased now. But, and she talks about them, kind of interrogating them, and you have to know what not to answer. And I think they were answering the questions with questions. But I'm curious of how they even figured out who were the authors, because they say there's 10 people that wrote these books, but I think they only went after the 2 of them, and they won the case, obviously. But that is what I'm interested in. How would they find that out? Aren't you in contract for privacy where you don't really, I don't want anybody to know that I have a trust, or that, you know what I mean? You're being private, trust within a trust within a trust.
I wonder if they were the trustees. or if they were.
No, they weren't.
Grantor.
Oh, hang on a second. Hang on. You know what? I shouldn't say that. I don't know.
There's got to be something that put those two out in the spotlight, where the others.
We need to ask him.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yep. Yeah, because then you kind of understand it a little bit more of maybe setting it up a different way, you know. And I know it's just a tool, you know, to you know, be more free, but we need to do it right.
And they could also, I don't know, maybe they were out promoting the book. They were the ones promoting the book. So,
well, they definitely knew how to answer them. They even were explaining that the IRS had no idea. They didn't even read the book. They had no idea about trust or anything. It was just interesting. Some of the interviews are on YouTube if you guys are interested.
Yeah, I gotta start watching those.
Did they go after them? What have they done that the government didn't like?
Revealing.
Right, but how did they know it was them? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they were going after the book because it was revealing some tricks of trade that they didn't. It was like esoteric knowledge being brought out into the public, and they didn't want that. And so they were trying to shut the book down, but the court was like, sorry, they can absolutely write this and promote this. Because again, all the information that they're giving is out there. It's just people don't know where to go to look for it. They
said this type of trust, the information is very hard to find. I think one of the things they were saying, there was a gentleman and he was taking classes at a law school and he was doing the trust classes and he asked the professor, where can I take a class on common law trust? And the professor told him that if we were to ever hold a class on that they'd shut us down. That's what we were told. We were never allowed to teach this type of trust. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was pretty interesting. I'm like, I haven't looked into it to see if you can find anything on it, you know, class-wise, but I found that interesting.
Very interesting. Okay, well, I'm going to stop the recording.